Welcome to the Talking Tradesman podcast. This is a space where people talk honestly about their lives, the highs, the lows, the pressure, and their mental health. No scripts, no filters, no pretending. Hosted by me, Russell Payne. Let's talk. I'm just going to pause there a minute to let you guys know about one of the UK's best kept trade secrets, Climador, a leading manufacturer of internal doors, external doors and patio doors and all the accessories you need for a smoother, more effortless project. Climador offer moulded, semi-solid and solid core internal doors in both unfinished and fully finished options with solid lipping and trim accessories to suit all frames. All at market leading prices with no compromise on quality or durability, and they can deliver directly to your site. Climador's team of friendly experts can help with custom door sizes and specialist solutions such as fire-rated doors and pre-hung door sets designed for a fast and stress-free installation. And once you've placed a few orders, you'll be eligible to join their free approved installer program. This gives you priority access to job leads in your local area and standard discount on every order alongside exclusive offers and perks. Just what you need to give your business a boost. Unlock the door to a flawless finish with Climador. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Talking Tradesman. With me in the studio today, I have Inder Virdi, who is a specialist in nutrition and in particular burnout, these kind of topics which, listen, all of you guys and girls listening to me now that are in the construction industry, you know burnout. So I thought it would be a great time to get Inder in to talk about this and also the nutrition side of things. Mate, it's January. Everyone wants to make these changes this time of year. So, I think the first thing, mate, if you can introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, what your background is, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Inder, and for the last 6-7 years, I've been a nutritional therapist. I'm kind of now sort of rebranding myself as more of a health consultant.
Okay.
Largely because nutrition has had a moment where everyone has kind of touted nutrition as like the best thing ever, but I think there's a lot more, so many other tools out there that can help as well. So I kind of draw upon lots of different modalities: nutrition, homeopathy, neuroscience, kinesiology, lots of different tools that I can use.
Fantastic.
So really, I'm sitting here because around 10 years ago, I developed chronic fatigue syndrome, where basically I was just flat out, knocked out. Couldn't get out of bed, and it sounds kind of crazy because we all know what it's like after a Friday night. What it's like to not get out of bed, but it's a different feeling than being hungover. Or
was there a build up to that?
Having cold, 100%, yeah. So I worked as a chef in hospital. I worked in the hospitality industry for a few years beforehand, and probably like a lot of your listeners, working super long hours, running around, stress, but also playing hard. Working hard, playing hard, commuting. I was also playing competitive squash at the time as well for my county.
That's intense.
So I was doing a bit of everything. I was working, I was studying, I was playing sort of high level squash. And basically burnt the candle at both ends.
It's interesting actually because from the catering or the chef industry, there's quite a few tradespeople that I've sat down with, and that's their background. They've gone from the hospitality or being a chef and then ended up in the construction industry. And I've actually remarked that there's a lot of parallels in terms of the pressure and the working time and environment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about really using your hands and being really involved and immersed in what you're doing, right? It's very interesting.
I think because you were in some high profile company as well while you were doing that, which I imagine would have added to the pressure of the position you were in.
Yeah, so a lot of people ask me, what was it like to work for certain chefs that you see on TV shouting and swearing?
Are you allowed to say who?
Why not? I guess, people like Gordon Ramsay, Heston Blumenthal, Brett Graham at the Ledbury, who recently became a 3 Michelin star restaurant. I think it was 2 when I was working there. The reality is actually a lot harder than you see on TV.
Really?
I mean, sometimes the chefs, like Gordon Ramsay famously, I think he plays to the cameras a little bit. But in reality, those guys are even harder.
Really? They're worse off camera than what you see with a shout.
100%, but always only in service. As people, there's a reason, their teams stick around for many years, because if their bosses were just completely, assholes to them.
Yeah.
they wouldn't stick around. But during those services, it's bad. It was bad. I mean, I think Marco Pierre White famously used to throw literally hot pans across the kitchen at people. I saw chefs, actually I was telling my mum this the other day, like I saw one of the head chefs at one of the restaurants. He tasted it was like a sauce out of a bottle. And he immediately went, what is this shit? And literally squirted it in the chef's face and just said, don't ever put that shit on this pass again. Yeah.
Mate, I mean, my personal reaction to that would be violence, but how they get away with that. That's
I know another chef who got punched. He got literally punched by the head chef. I can't remember the reason, but he got punched. And
I mean, Heston Blumenthal, he's the one that's famous for the crazy combinations of things, isn't he?
Yeah. The fat duck. Another one. I mean, recently he's been going through a lot of mental health issues. But yeah, there's a price to pay for that genius, for sure.
You find that a lot, though, don't you? You look at a lot of creatives, and I think when you're at that head chef point, it's a creative industry, isn't it? You've got to
100%.
design your own menu and design your own combinations. And to be honest with you, I mean, humans have been eating ever since our our origins. So it's how do you reinvent the wheel to a degree? Like, there's a lot of food and cuisines out there, so there must be a lot of pressure in that.
No doubt about it. It's even back then it was competitive. The restaurant industry's never been more competitive than it is today. And yeah, it's like being a musician as well. Like Avicii, the famous DJ, he used to talk about this feeling of he's had a big hit single when they released Levels. That was one of the biggest tracks in the world. What's next? The pressure to keep people coming and keep people excited.
It's a strange thing. There's a phenomenon in there that I looked up, like professional athletes, sports people. Tyson Fury is another great example. Wins a title and then is like, well, that's me now. And he Fury famously spiraled into the huge weight gain and his mental health battles that he put out into the public. And that was off the back of one of his biggest wins. And there's a lot of it with Olympians and stuff like that as well. They train their whole life to hit this, what seems like an insurmountable goal, but then they get there and then it does leave that whole like, okay, what now? Big gap.
100%. And there's a book, the name has escaped me, but the author is Adam Atler, and he wrote this book maybe 5-6 years ago, if not longer. And it was all about smartphones and kind of the addictive nature of them and what makes them addictive. And he talks very much about one of the rules for something to be addictive is essentially never-ending reward. So, yeah, when you're at the top of your game as a DJ, a chef, whatever you are in your industry, the brain just can't handle achieving that pinnacle because we're seeking the next reward.
Smartphones and the dopamine release and stuff like that it's a deep hole of a conversation, that one. It fascinates me a bit morbidly, really. Having, before we got on record, I was telling you about the fact that I studied psychology, but the smartphone phenomenon is, we're in the middle of this living experiment that we don't know the results of yet. There are generations that are now growing up. So I was born in 1984, and I'm so grateful that smartphones were not around. In fact, my first smartphones probably early 20s maybe. But I had all my childhood without. But there's now the kids coming through that have grown up with an iPhone or an iPad in their hand from 2, 3. And the mental effect, and personally, I believe the rewiring, because neuroplasticity, where the brain can change, rewire, sort of develop its connections, is a proven phenomenon. So that can work both ways, positively and negatively. So the fact that we're giving our kids now these technologies from such a young age, we don't know the mental health implications, because we haven't actually had that generation that have gone from, say, 2 to 30 yet. That's on the way. They're in the post. So my personal belief is there's going to be a whole explosion of mental health, whether it's a crisis or issues or what that, I don't know, but I believe there's going to be, and I don't think it's going to be a positive impact.
No, 100%. And we know, for sure, one thing we do know is that one of the biggest predictors of, if you like, success in adulthood in terms of health, in terms of mental health as well, physical health and mental health, is feedback from parental feedback. whether that's touch, whether that's words of affirmation, constant feedback, and that's why in those teenage years as well, between sort of 13 and 18, being a part of a group is so important, and belonging and fitting in. I mean, a lot of us didn't fit in, but that's why it's so crucial, because you're getting feedback from authority figures. And one of the big concerns with phones is that the feedback is not there. Obviously you and I grew up with dummies. You remember those rubber dummies? I don't know if kids are even given rubber dummies anymore. They're given smartphones, or they're given iPads as a replacement. So the feedback's coming very much from the interaction of the device.
It's easy to sort of look like you're bashing parents. So to anyone out there with young kids, like, I get it. I get why. I'm guilty of doing it with my own kids. You go out for something to eat or something, you want that bit of downtime or a little bit of relatively, peaceful family time, and the kids are kicking off because they don't want to sit and wait 15 minutes for their cheeseburger and plain chips to arrive. So you give them I have my phone. I have my tablet. But the stunting in their development in terms of communication's huge. And it's one of those, isn't it? When that technology wasn't there, it was never an option. Now it is there, and it is an option. And everything's changed. Society's changed. The world has changed. The world that we as parents live in has changed. And I think we just live in such fast-paced lives now, where you've got to do so much more, in my opinion, to keep your head above water. Let's stop there a moment to say a massive thank you to our headline sponsors, Zinza. Now, Zinza understands the commitment and dedication and long hours it takes to get a job done right. That's why they make the paints and primers that pros trust to do their best work. Plus, if you're looking for support, you can also sign up for pro membership, and you'll have access to Zinza's specification team. They make it easy to pick the right products and will work closely with you on site to deliver a solution that meets the highest standards. It's all part of what makes Zinza the mark of a pro. A big thank you to Zinza for continuing to support the Talking Tradesman podcast and helping us spread mental health awareness throughout construction and beyond. Now let's get back to the episode.
It is tough out there, and I don't envy young parents. I'm dreading that. I'm approaching that sort of age.
Kids yourself?
No, not yet, but I'm approaching that.
So I'm just putting you off.
That bracket,
I'll zip it. Yeah, I'll zip it.
Yeah, I mean, I know I was reading recently, OpenAI are actually looking at kind of reinventing the concept of a phone altogether, where essentially it will be like a wearable pin of some kind.
Okay.
That will talk to us. I'm sure it'll have a camera there so Big Brother can watch as well. And it will be like a buddy. It will literally be like a buddy on our shoulder.
It's terrifying. I mean, again, getting into the AI conversation and OpenAI, ChatGPT, there's proof, isn't there, that people are now reliant on that for a lot of everyday tasks. I know listen, hands up as well. I use ChatGPT a lot. I use it more than Google because the information's quicker and faster and more to the point, in my opinion. But that's a lot of power to hand over. And you're also all of your own. It's like anything, isn't it? If you sit on your sofa all day, your muscles are going to deplete. If you use ChatGPT for everything, your brain is going to get lazy as well. It's got to have an effect on intelligence.
No doubt about it. I had someone describe kind of the personal interactions with AI as kind of the junk food version of interaction, or the junk food version of communication.
Yeah.
It tells you what you want to hear.
Listen, I mean, everyone's seen iRobot, but I genuinely actually think we're heading that way. I do.
100%.
I think the integration of AI into appliances is on the cusp. And when we've got that, and you can talk to everything in your house, people ain't going to want to leave the house. Human interaction, which can be awkward and embarrassing, people are going to avoid at all costs.
I mean, people don't want to leave the house today. When you think about it, you don't really need to leave the house if you don't want to.
No, you're right. You're right. The same thing. I mean, obviously, as a nutrition expert, but the boom of fast food and the options available and how easy it is now with apps like everyone. I'm not promoting anyone here or anyone's any better, but your Just Eats and your Uber Eats and things like that. It's made but again, it comes down to living quick, fast, and easy.
Absolutely, and you can't blame people. Life has never been tougher, really, from a financial perspective.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's never been tougher, but never been easier at the same time.
Yeah,
they cohabit. we're straying. I love these conversations, Inder, to be fair. It's never a problem to go off piste, but I don't want to avoid getting onto your own journey in terms of your chronic fatigue and how, what I want to find out is how that came about, why that came about, and what the signs were in the build-up.
Yeah, I think, I think social media makes a lot of conditions seem like you're just walking down the street one day and you just get struck down. In my experience dealing with supporting people with chronic issues, it's very seldom. It's always a combination of different factors. And with me, no, I was no different. So for me, it was personal expectations of trying to get somewhere. I think a lot of us just feel quite, let me rephrase it like this. People who I see develop things like chronic fatigue tend to be very hard on themselves. They tend to be either A-type personalities, high expectations, very driven, goal-orientated. But at the same time, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, where like fighters, for example, get to the pinnacle and then they drop into depression. They're just chasing a never-ending goal. Mm-hmm. So I was very much in that camp. I think, and then secondly, physical exertion, exercising, training very hard, 4, 5, 6 times a week, plus working long shifts in the restaurants. But for me, the breaking point, because the body is unbelievably resilient. There's no doubt about it. People do incredible feats. Was it Spencer Matthews? He did something crazy, like a handful of, was it ultra marathons or something in a row? Yeah,
you've got like David Goggins and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's not just the physical aspect. It's often the emotional aspect that's going on at the time, but often underpinned by past events, growing up, childhood stuff, which kind of bubbles up and manifests a bit later on, in my experience. So in other words, trauma is a big piece of that puzzle. In supporting patients like this.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And there's a book, you're no doubt aware of it, The Body Holds a Score. But the science behind that in terms of the statistics in terms of people that have experienced childhood trauma, increased rates in cancer, increased rates in heart disease. You could argue that maybe some of it, it's like, oh, does the trauma cause lifestyle differences? But some of these people are incredibly fit and healthy, but haven't, they've held on to the trauma. The body gets locked in fight or flight. And just on a scientific chemical-based level, when you're in fight or flight, your body releases certain chemicals to deal with that. They're not chemicals that the body is meant to experience long-term. So if your body, due to your brain, gets locked in, say, permanent release of something, our bodies aren't actually designed to cope with that. And that's where the problems come in.
Yeah. And there are some people who argue, actually, that the brain is trying to protect itself, or it's trying to protect the body. When it shuts down with chronic fatigue syndrome, even chronic pain, you can argue, it's really a defense. It's really a defensive response from the brain to kind of shut the body down. And so this isn't safe.
It's the same as swelling, isn't it? Again, people think that swelling is a bad thing. Like, oh, I've hurt myself, so I'm swollen, and it's an annoyance. Actually, the swelling's there to protect the joint, the whatever part of the body is swollen. It's your body's doing that because it thinks it's a form of defense, which I guess on a mental structure is exactly the same.
No doubt about it. There's some interesting, lots of emerging research. I was actually a part of a research team involved in this. Essentially, there's an idea that a lot of chronic conditions, so things like chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, so chronic pain, which is probably common amongst a lot of the listeners, things like long COVID even, are actually being kind of perpetuated or driven by your threat detection system. So the part of the limbic system, part of the brain responsible for trying to keep you safe and detect threats. It's the part that actually drives your emotions, all the worry, the anxiety, all those kind of things. That becomes overactive. And it's like you cross a line, patients cross a line when they're pushing themselves very hard, then they catch an infection of some kind, and the body then is dealing with the infection, but that limbic system becomes extra vigilant, like extra overactive. And essentially locks the body into this state of, I'm not safe, and I'm going to shut down to try and protect myself. So this is something that we work on a lot with patients as well.
It fascinates me. The mind just absolutely fascinates me. So I love listening to this kind of stuff as well. Getting on to your experience then, Inder, so how did that manifest for you with the chronic fatigue? Like, how did you know, what were the first symptoms? What was going on in your life at the time for that to develop?
So looking back, I think the symptoms started maybe weeks, maybe even a few months before I really crashed. So for me, it was, the first one was just not having that get up and go that I used to have. Everything was just a drag. And I know in this day and age, I'm sure a lot of the listeners feel like that anyway, just life is, they've got to push themselves to just get the task done. But this was just becoming increasingly, it was just getting more common. Every day was just getting harder and harder and harder to get out of bed.
When you say harder, you're talking like motivation or physically, like you
No,
felt...
just physically, just feeling heavier.
Okay.
Not even having the motivation to get out of bed. Just that feeling of just being super heavy. And I remember having to get into my car, drive to the car park, and then I'd have to have a nap. Didn't have the energy to even get out of the car.
Really?
Yeah. So that was happening like a few weeks before the crash. Another interesting one for me was feeling cold. I was feeling, looking back, we know that's often a symptom of thyroid issues. So my tolerance to the cold was decreasing a lot. And for me, the biggest symptom was brain fog, which is something I'm super passionate about. That's kind of become my life's mission, trying to get people out of brain fog. So I would notice just simple things like leaving my key in the front door when I'd come home, or sending an email to the wrong person. Difficulty just finding words when I would be talking to my boss, for example. And even just memories, just difficulty recalling certain memories. And also probably most commonly feeling overwhelmed, just feeling like, a task is kind of insurmountable. And it might be something as simple as it's Saturday morning, I've got to go to Sainsbury's and I've got to go to the supermarket and I've got to go see my granny. Like that would just feel very overwhelming.
Too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I would imagine speaking to the audience that you'll be speaking to, there's probably a lot of people that are just sat there nodding. No, yeah, I get that. Yeah. It's quite frightening to think how many people live in that state for such long periods of time. I mean, I'm imagining the reached a point in your journey with the chronic fatigue where it became an apparent issue that there was something very wrong to either you or people around you. What did that look like?
Well, to be honest, it was blind panic by certain relatives and just total kind of confusion by others. So they're either two. Normally, in my experience, the relatives have two responses. One, it's like, oh my God, there's something seriously wrong. Take him to the doctor. And then two, oh, there's nothing really wrong with him. He looks fine. Like, what's going on? So I kind of had both. And that's a whole topic in itself when people are struggling with these conditions. Like, what do you say to your family to make them understand? I mean, when this happened to me, this was kind of mid to 2010-ish, 2011. It's not very common at all. It was not very common at all. So it was very much just a matter of, your blood tests are fine, go away, you'll get better. But that I never did get better.
How long were you sat in the depths of it?
5 or 6 years. It took about 5, 6, maybe slightly longer, 7, 8 years to get from there to kind of being able to sit here and.
That sounds horrific. Well, I was expecting you to say a lot less than that. I was expecting, 5, 6 months at the most. But 5, so you were living with chronic fatigue for 5 to 6 years.
Yeah. I lost most of my 20s to it. Yeah.
Wow. And that must have been such a mental toll on you as well.
Hugely. It's funny because now, having come through the other end, I look back and think, God, how was it even possible to feel like that? But I get calls on a daily basis from patients literally saying, I'm in my early 20s, I'm back home living with my parents. Or just the other week, I had a gentleman who was kind of middle age, living in the corporate world, basically just living on his savings, literally surviving on his savings, not able to work. He was the main breadwinner, kids to support. And it was just a complete disaster for him. It's very difficult, and I think the biggest challenge for myself and people going through this is just not seeing any light at the end of the tunnel. The good news now is there are chronic fatigue clinics and long COVID clinics that kind of can at least give you a formal diagnosis, but there's very little that they can offer.
were you diagnosed with anything by the medical profession?
So yeah, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome.
Was that early on in the journey, or?
Fortunately, I had a great GP. So
Okay.
he kind of saw the signs. He was a little bit more open-minded.
Right.
So I kind
Because obviously, like with your symptoms, what you were telling me, I would have maybe thought that that'd have gone down the depression route. Because again, it sounds very similar, like depression, same thing, struggle to get out of bed, no motivation, lack of, any sort of motivation to do anything.
Yeah, but the difference for me was my mood wasn't particularly low, if that makes sense. My energy was low, but my mood wasn't low, if that kind of makes sense.
It makes sense. It seems hard to picture how that would... I would have thought that the way that you felt would have then quickly impacted your mood.
Yeah, so the difficult thing for me during the chronic fatigue was just not being able to kind of really read, because I love learning. Probably doesn't surprise you. I love learning and reading and interacting with people. That part was taken away from me. So I felt doubly kind of isolated. So that level of isolation dropped my mood, but not the actual condition itself. And this is where it touches on kind of the blurred lines of diagnosis of depression. Is it physical phenomenon? Is it because a lot of the symptoms of depression, as you've touched on, kind of describe physical symptoms, lack of motivation, difficulty, low energy, things like that. Like low energy is a physical symptom.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can touch on that idea that a lot of mental health issues are manifestations of deeper physical issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Funnily enough, my own journey with mental health so the reason I studied psychology was after going through my own journey with mental health, for want of a better word. The listeners will have heard me talk about this several times, so I'll keep it short and sweet for them, but to enable you to understand. So I went through a divorce in my early 30s. Prior to that, I was completely ignorant to mental health. If you'd have asked me, my response would have been, ain't got it, mate. That would have been it. But I went through a divorce, wasn't particularly an easy one, and experienced, I guess, anxiety and a couple of borderline panic attacks. But the physical symptom and that was what fascinated me, in there was going through it, and stuff like bad skin, trouble sleeping, all the usual stuff. My heart rate, I'd feel like my heart was beating out my chest, and it was. And what I did was latch on to a fascination, really. I became fascinated with the physical manifestation of my thoughts. And that was my journey into psychology. It was almost like, it sounds ridiculous now, being as I've been doing this podcast, but it was like somebody had pulled this curtain back and gone, yeah, this mental health thing exists. And I've gone, shit, yeah, it does, yeah. Now I need to learn about it. And that was what I did. I jumped into education with both feet and started studying psychology, philosophy, Buddhism, Christ, you name it. I even went down like Greek mythology and the Stoics, and I studied loads. And it's a little bit like you. I've got a thirst for knowledge. And it was this whole topic that this curtain had been pulled up. And I'm going, oh, wow, this is really important, actually. I need to learn about this. And it was a self-therapy for me. I needed to understand how this could connect to my physical form. I just pointed at my head, by the way. I forget sometimes we're on a podcast and some people are listening. Pointed at my head, how my head can connect to my physical form. And that's the thing with any mental health condition, though. Like anxiety, you feel it. You don't think it. You don't think anxiety. You feel it. You feel your chest constricting. You feel the pressure. So there is that blurred line between physical and mental. The mental definitely affects the physical. And unfortunately, there's still a wide portion of the population that still think that's a bit like, oh, that's a bit woo-woo, that, isn't it? However, if I were to say to anybody on the street, that stress can cause a heart attack, they would all, oh, yeah, of course, yeah, my mate, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Well, what is stress? Stress is a thought pattern. Stress is mental. It's not physical, but it has physical symptoms to stress. So, yeah, personally, I think that whole barrier between mental and physical health just needs to be abolished, and it just needs to be health. And rather than the two categories, because unfortunately, mental health still carries a stigma, and it still carries a barrier. that stops some people talking about it because they're concerned that they're going to be pigeonholed, labelled, oh, it's that crazy guy over there that struggles with his mental health. That needs to stop. And that's why these conversations are so important, actually, is to break down a lot of these boundaries.
Absolutely. And an extreme example that I use is if you have a flu, for example, a really bad flu or even a bad cold, often one of the symptoms can be brain fog, but secondly, kind of low mood. And people need to people don't need to do anything, but I strongly encourage people to just think about the connection between our brain and for example, our gut. The gut-brain axis has had so much research kind of showing us, in fact, there are actually more signals traveling up from the gut to the brain than the other way around.
Okay.
For a long time, it was thought that the brain just sat in the head and kind of monitored and controlled everything. But in fact, it's kind of a two-way motorway, and signals from the liver, from the gut, from the immune system, all travel up to the brain. And if anything, the brain is actually, I argue, is the most sensitive organ in the body. So whatever's going on in your life, physical assaults, infections, injuries, mechanical injuries can all affect the brain. And another way of putting it is the conversation we're having right now, the feelings that we're experiencing, the anxiety, the sadness, whatever the listeners may be feeling right now, is all stemming from biochemical reactions in the brain. There's this psychospiritual component to it as well. But generally speaking, if we scanned your brain right now, we'd see certain areas lighting up. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we can't separate that connection. And people who are if you are experiencing anxiety or depression or any other mental issues, just think about your biochemistry as well and what you can do to support your body's biochemistry.
So by supporting your body's biochemistry, we're talking about nutrition, aren't we? We're talking about what we put in.
Absolutely, the basics, yeah, absolutely.
We're going to get into it, Inder. I don't want to. There's a part I don't want to jump over, which is your own recovery. So before we get into that, because we're going to go trade specific shortly and talk about, essentially a lot of issues that affect not everyone, but particularly the construction industry. Your own recovery. Mm-hmm. For a 5-6 year period, how did that look? How did you turn a corner?
So I think the first thing to say is I received my medical diagnosis. And then next question is, okay, what's next? Who can help me? So I jumped between a few different medical specialties, immunologists, rheumatologists, for example, people who specialize in joint pain. They tend to have an interest in chronic fatigue, and essentially received the same answer. You're kind of fine. It looks like you've had some sort of viral bug. You'll be all right. You'll get over it. And that was it. And then essentially I'd always kind of grown up in quite a holistic household. So my mum took me to a homeopath when I was really young because I had asthma, and it was an absolute game changer for me. So my next kind of port to call was trying to see some alternative therapists of some kind. A lot of them kind of were well-meaning but didn't really help. So I saw chiropractors, I saw a lot of nutritionists actually. Mm-hmm. You name it, homeopathics, Chinese acupuncturists, all those kind of people. They kind of helped a little bit, but nothing really shifted. And then by pure accident, I happened to walk into a health food shop one day to pick up my bits because I'd already made some dietary changes, and just got chatting to the lady who was working there, and her husband happened to be a nutritional therapist, and he happened to be there, ended up having a chat, and he specialized in working with a lot of athletes, and also like a lot of MotoGP type guys who had developed chronic fatigue, kind of recognized my symptoms, immediately recommended some remedies. We can go into that if you like.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's some glandulars, for example, to support my adrenals, some high dose B vitamins, some thyroid support, things like that. And immediately 30-40% better. I was able to kind of just start getting back into a bit more of a routine. So that was a huge eye opener. But then it kind of, again, the results just plateaued. And then, a few years went on like that, and then ended up meeting another nutritional therapist who approached it from a very different angle, in that he kind of had the idea that a lot of chronic fatigue is driven by underlying infections of some kind. So it tends to be a viral trigger. So Epstein-Barr virus, things like that, mono, that kind of stuff. That kind of tends to be the trigger, but then that kind of activates other infections underneath. And there's this kind of relationship. It's not just ever a singular infection. So when you catch COVID, for example, it's not just the COVID virus that causes your symptoms. It activates other infections that lay dormant in our cells. So it's like it's a whole manner of assaults from different angles. So anyways, this nutritional therapist helped me address those infections and then kind of clean up the mess that had happened in my cells, oxidative stress, that kind of thing. And then over several years, just my strength came back. Ended up retraining, used that time to study part-time nutritional therapy. And then when I got kind of to a decent level, I thought, like, I have to learn about the brain, because my biggest symptom was brain fog. So I ended up doing an MSc in neuroscience and immersing myself in the world of meditation, mindfulness, stress management, chronic fatigue. And many years later, the rest is history. And I've been using what I've learned to try and help others.
Big question, how are you today?
The truth is, I don't want to make a sweeping statement, but I think once you've had something like this, I don't think you're ever going to be firing at 100% these days. I mean, I know people who haven't had chronic fatigue and they're not firing at 100. Overall, I operate at 80, 85%. But I notice if I'm either overdoing it, I'm getting stressed out, I'm traveling a lot, things like, or seeing too many patients in a day, my energy does drop. So I just have to kind of go back to my rituals to bring myself back up.
I wonder how many of us actually do operate anywhere close to 100%.
Yeah, kind of guys I think of who operate 100% work in investment banks and hedge funds, and guys who are at the office 15, 16 hours a day at the top of their game, but they have no personal life and they're just totally, I wonder. But
yeah, I mean, listen, money makes the world go round to an extent, but that sounds horrific to me. 15, 16 hour office days in front of that would not tick boxes for me. Fair play to everyone that does. But yeah, that doesn't sound like 100% to me.
Yeah. They're performing at 100%. Whether they are 100% in themselves is another conversation. But
to move it into the construction industry then, Inder, because obviously a lot of the listeners are construction industry based. You told me, because we've been trying to get this day in for a while, diaries didn't work, whatever it might have been, and you actually said to me on an email the other day that it was good timing because you've started seeing some clients in the industry. What are you seeing? Obviously without going into personals, but like...
Of course. So I tend to see the same thing, and ironically a lot of painter and decorators, they were fine one day, they were doing their job, they've been in the trade 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and then all of a sudden it was like the cards came crashing down. They developed kind of overwhelming anxiety, fatigue to some extent, that loss of drive, like I mentioned, of just getting out of bed. Everything became more of a drag, but mostly their mental health symptoms. It was just like all of a sudden this dark veil just came over them, and they're kind of crippled with anxiety. Very common is what I see a lot of.
Interestingly, so the construction industry itself, I'm sure I might have mentioned this to you before, but I've definitely mentioned it several times on the podcast. It's the worst affected industry in the UK now for mental health and suicide rates. And out of the construction industry, the two worst trades are painters and decorators and plasterers, which I've got my own guesses as to why that is. They're the two finishing trades. They're the two trades most likely to work alone, long hours, on your own, solo working. There's certain pressures involved with those trades that maybe some of the other trades don't feel as much. But yeah, it's an interesting thing that you would be dealing with a lot of painters and decorators, given what the statistics are saying for mental health.
Yeah, so it kind of touches on the idea of what we're talking about, this division between the psychology and the physical. I work with someone very closely in the practice who has for a long time talked about this idea of, if you just smell something, if you smell whatever it is, a varnish or glue or something like that, and either you like it or it makes you dizzy or makes you feel strange after the exposure, that is a sign that your tank, so to speak, of that particular chemical is too high, and your system, your liver, is saying, I can't handle this. So it's my work. It is currently my sort of working theory that over time, because like I said, it doesn't happen overnight. Very rarely, unless you bathe in the stuff. The body is building up. It was absorbing, even if it's just sniffs over time. The body is building up exposure, and it is the system has to store it and deal with it. And either you're being exposed to it in large amounts, and it's just completely overwhelming the system, which tends to be rarer, or modern life, etc., stress, etc., poorer diets is not giving the system enough of the nutrients that it needs to get rid of it.
I think diets is huge. It's one of the, to me, it's a really big problem in the construction industry, and I'm a nightmare for it, if I'm honest. I'm trying to make changes currently, but yeah, I mean, maybe the P&D industry as well. We use a lot more products in terms of, wet material, as it were, because you've got different paints, different varnishes, paint strippers, sprayable paints, non-sprayable paints, water-based systems, oil-based systems, shellac-based systems, within water-based paints. I'm not going to bore you with the technicals, but even there's a big sweeping statement now where people say, do you use oil-based or water-based paints? But within water-based, you've got enamel water-based paints, you've got polyurethane water-based paints, and you've got acrylic water-based paints, all different chemical compositions, so all different effects on the body. If ingested, I would imagine, whether that's, the fumes or whatever it might be. I said to you again, pre-recording 2010, there was a big change on paint regs. They cut out a lot of the VOCs in paint, so it pretty much decimated the oil paint market. So a lot of what I'm getting at now is the paints that are on the market now, the water-based, a lot of them are brand new. They're almost like on trial, and we're the trial. So if something is going to have a negative effect on it, there's a lot of the stuff that's out there now that is so new, we don't really know what long-term exposure to that chemical would do. Combine that with long hours, stresses, and poor... Mate, listen, the amount of tradespeople that probably start the day, and this is no critique because I'm one of you, that probably start the day with, like a Greg's breakfast in the morning, followed by a meal deal, whether that, one of the supermarket meal deals, and then a takeaway at night. That's probably a lot of people.
Yeah, 100%. But just going back a step, just touching on what you mentioned about these new products on the market. I was just looking up last night, Dulux standard white paint. I can't remember if it was a polyurethane based, whatever it was, but just a standard Dulux. In there, titanium dioxide, for example, titanium generally it's used in foods, especially in the US, to make foods like whiter or kind of shinier.
Okay.
Titanium it's used in hip implants and things like that. But in the clinic, we see titanium test up in a lot of people's bloods.
Having titanium in the blood.
Yeah. And we were saying off camera that obviously P&Ds, often they get paint on their system, or in their hands or in the hair or anything. Our skin is arguably the largest organ system. It's absorbing all the time. So if
you get paints on your hands, what you're saying is your body is actually absorbing some of the chemicals.
Absolutely. And even if it's 0.0001%, right? You're doing this every day. It's your trade. So
listen, what I want to know now is how many people are at work listening to this on headphones that have just looked at their hands. Drop me a message, drop a comment, drop a comment below if that was you. But yeah, it's you've got there's a certain amount of decorators that do wear gloves. I'm not one of them, but a certain do, and probably get a bit of ridicule for doing so. But from what you've just said, it makes all the sense in the world.
100%. I understand, obviously, it's easier not to wear gloves when you're doing kind of, technical work, more detailed stuff. But it's something so simple. It's not cool. It's like having a rucksack when you're at school, right? It's not cool.
Yeah.
But it's such a simple thing, and I can't recommend it enough. Just wear gloves, because we absorb everything.
I'd never even thought about that, Inder. I've got to be honest. I had never, ever... I'd kind of thought, as long as I'm not getting the paint in my eye or in my mouth, then I'm not absorbing it.
No. Our organ is our skin is our most absorptive organ. And I remember Deborah Meaden from Dragon's Den saying there was a beauty product or something. It was like makeup or something, and they were claiming to be kind of all natural. And Deborah Meaden said, I'm not going to put something on my skin that I wouldn't eat. And I think she said it so well, because for that very reason, that we absorb everything through our skin.
Well, that's just terrified me.
Yeah.
I would love to actually do a blood test with you just so you can see potentially all of the horrific chemicals that are floating around my system right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's never a single thing. And that's the other thing to bear in mind to the listeners. You know, it's not just titanium in white paint, for example. It is things in the varnishes, it's the fumes, it's so many different compounds that you're exposed to over time. You know, and right now, there are around 50,000 man-made chemicals circulating in our environment right now, 50,000. Kind of touching on what you said about, you know, these new paint products being kind of experiments. A lot of those products, a lot of those chemicals that are in circulation have been banned over the last 5, 10, 15 years. A lot of them are released in the 60s, 70s and 80s. So things like lindane, DDT, for example, insecticides and wood preservatives, lindane and DDT, banned in the early 2000s. So, yeah, I don't want to scare people, but there are so many compounds in the environment
Truth can be scary, mate.
that our system is absorbing and having to deal with. And it's cumulative exposure, micro exposures over time.
I guess one of the big questions here is, can you reverse the effects?
100%.
So I was just, is this doom and gloom? I've topped myself up with God knows. So is there any, don't bother wearing gloves for us, your fault.
No, I should say, so there are two camps. So obviously, there's a doctor, if there are any medical people listening to this, obviously, if you're acutely exposed, if you drink your Dulux, can you recover from the damage from that? That's a different conversation.
There are other paint brands on the market,
Yeah,
by the way,
sorry.
just in case. But
I'm not a fan of Dulux.
And not condoning drinking Dulux either.
Yeah, please don't do
Please
that.
don't drink it.
But a serious exposure like that, to recover from the damage of that kind of situation is I'm not so sure. But in what we're talking about, the chronic exposure, yes, to a degree. So I think the first thing to say is getting rid of these toxins can be quite difficult, because we're also kind of fighting against, even just sitting in this room, we are absorbing everything that's around us. So our system has to work doubly hard. Like, we have to consume double the nutrients to kind of offset the damage of just existing and then detoxifying. It takes a lot of energy. So the answer is yes, you can absolutely get better, but it requires a lot of work and consistency. And kind of like probably the most difficult, but one of the most effective things to do is eating 8 vegetables a day.
Okay.
You can put this, you can juice them or turn them into soups, get your loved one to do it.
And that will detox your system.
It will help massively, yes. The reason being is because there are certain compounds in there, like sulfur compounds, that basically help bind to the toxins in the liver and help clear everything out.
When you say 8 vegetables, are we talking 8 different vegetables?
8 different vegetables, yeah, which
So
makes
I
it
can't just have 8 carrots.
No.
Last night, nailed it.
No, definitely not. So it's kind of things like the sprouting broccoli. It has to be sprouting broccoli, cauliflower, leeks, cabbages of all kinds, onions of all kinds. Those kind of 5 groups are your powerhouses. If you can, in one meal, you know, if your stomach tolerates it, if you can eat those 5 things in a bowl 3-4 times a day, you're winning. That just a massive game changer in itself.
I mean, that sounds horrific to me, mate. I've got to be honest. But
the way to look at it, it's not a substitution. So it's not, what I'm not saying is don't have your meal deal, you know, replace it.
Yeah.
Replace your meal deal with the veggies. It's have your meal deal plus have the veggies. That's the difference.
Are we talking raw cooked, boiled?
Cooked, well cooked, ideally. If you are kind of unwell or if you've got symptoms, your system needs cooked vegetables.
It's fascinating. Like, honestly, I'm actually sat here a little bit mind blown because I had never ever considered what touches my skin as getting into my system. I'd always thought I would have to literally breathe. I was aware, you know, if you're breathing in vapors and fumes and particles, that makes sense. But I'd never considered the skin, which is quite frightening now.
Well, just think of it like, you know, if you put, I don't know how many of the listeners moisturize, but if you put like moisturizer on or hand cream, it disappears, doesn't it? Where's it going?
Shit. Yeah. Oh, well. Nice knowing you, folks.
It's not too late. Just start wearing the gloves now. And you can just start doing those basic things that that will help. That will get you back on.
And I mean, listen, again, I mean, I'm in the decorating industry myself, but there's all the other industries. I'm just thinking about the products we use. And I mean, like we use a lot of ready mixed, say, wallpaper paste. I don't wear gloves when I'm doing that. Every paper hanger out there, but bet not many of you wear gloves. Solvite paste has got antifungicidals in the paste to stop mold growth. I'm assuming that can't be good to ingest.
100%. Yeah.
Inder's just
breathing,
sat there shaking,
breathing
like,
and touching.
Oh, no.
Breathing and touching. If I could suggest something, so apologies if the listeners know this. You can type in any product, any DIY, any construction product, Dulex white paint, and type in safety sheet. Mm-hmm. Every product by law has to have a safety sheet. These kind of products, and you might look at the back of the product, in the physical product, and see a hazard sign. Those hazard signs are quite extreme. If you look at the safety sheet, it will actually tell you. It will break down all the different ingredients, and it will tell you basically what symptoms they're associated with. So, like for example, skin allergies, asthma, whatever it might be, cancers. It will tell you, and it will tell you what quantity of that compound you need to be exposed to for how long. I think that the name is ATE, average, or something like that. I can't remember. Exposure time. It'll break every single component down. And when you read it, you'll see you need like 0.5 gram exposure for like 3 hours, and it will cause skin allergy or skin rash.
Wow.
So every product, I encourage you, if you've got the time, just Google it.
And then you've got again, I mentioned this pre-record, like with our industry, a lot of the work we do in the construction industry, not just our trade, others, is restorative. So we'll do things like we'll sand down substrates. We won't know particularly what that coating is, what was in it. Obviously, past a certain date, you can be looking at things like lead, things like Artex pre-2000 can have asbestos in it. There are various things. I guess there are certain compounds, like everyone in the construction industry knows asbestos, and everyone is like, well, everyone knows how bad that is. But there's a lot of stuff that we will remove, sand down, break, that will then be in particle form that we probably haven't got a clue of for what we're breathing in.
So the biggest one when you're breaking down concrete, for example, is crystalline silica. And crystalline silica is known, the way to look at it, view it, is like tiny, tiny microscopic shards of glass that we absorb, or we're breathing in through our lungs. And then our immune systems have to try and basically send in immune cells that gobble up and break it down. But the problem is, it's like wrapping your hand around a shard of glass. It's going to crack you. It's going to cut you. Excuse me. And that's what happens to the immune cells. So these white cells called macrophages kind of gobble up the crystalline silica, but then they break and cause damage, which causes more damage, or causes more inflammation, causes more immune cells, and over time you get basically scarring of the inside of the lungs.
Really?
And this is well known amongst lung physicians, like lung consultants, specialists. Over time, that can develop into like silicosis, lung silicosis, interstitial lung disease, things like this.
And that's through breaking down concrete?
Yes. Yeah. Even if I'm imagining you go on site with bare concrete walls and stuff, and it's in the air. You're already breathing it in.
Anyone else thinking they need a change of profession right now?
but as always, the solutions are super simple. Wear your gloves, wear your masks, and you were mentioning the suction machines that you have.
Yeah, so dustless sanding is a big thing in our industry now, which is great. But as I said to you, I mean, I worked in the trade for at least 18 years without it. And there's something probably to address. There's a bit of an element of the macho. So listen, the construction industry is that. It's one of the things why people think there's such a mental health issue is because of the macho alpha male predominant nature of the industry. And there's that, it's the whole, I don't want to look, I'll speak openly, I don't want to look like a pussy putting a mask on in front of my colleagues and all the rest of it. They want to, you want to look like, it's a strange thing, actually, that it's almost glorified to disregard your own safety. It's like, oh, look at him, he must be a big hard bloke because he don't care that he's breathing in all these dangerous particles. I've been guilty of doing it, mate, very rarely, if I'm honest. I mean, I've got all the dustless systems. I definitely wear the correct masks when I'm spraying. I'm not very good at putting a mask on when I'm doing anything else. And some of the time it's like you'll be partway through a job and I've generally got a sanding pad in my pocket when I'm at work, and you'll notice something that I might have missed that with the machine. So you just do it by hand. Realistically, I'm not going to go out to the van to get a mask. What I probably should do is carry a mask in my pocket, but I don't. I'm not going to get a mask to put that on to do what I consider to be a 2-minute job. But how many 2-minute jobs do I do over the course of a week, a month, a year, where I'm actually unprotected while I'm doing this stuff? And I think there's an element of it mentally. Knees is another great one. When I first got into the trade, everyone, wear knee pads. And I'm in my early 20s. I don't need knee pads. I'm, fit as a horse. Now I wish I'd worn knee pads when I was younger. And that's the advice that we all give out. If anyone's like, what advice would you give to a younger you? Wear knee pads. But the reason I bring that example up is because there's this projection, like it will never be me, because the damage isn't instant. And, if you drop a brick on your foot, instantly you're like, should have wore steel toes because I'm feeling that pain instantly. If you're breathing things in, there's no instant, you don't take a breath and go, ow, and I think it's part of the problem, because it's invisible, cumulative, like you said, cumulative damage. You don't quantify it in the moment, so you don't protect yourself against it. I guarantee you, if you've worked on site and you've dropped something heavy on your foot and you didn't have steels on, you wear steels now. If you've trod on a nail and it's gone through the bottom of your foot because you weren't wearing your steels, now you're wearing boots because you remember that pain. The cumulative stuff, I think, is more dangerous because there's not that instant impact.
No. I always say it takes 10, 20, 30 years to become ill. There's that expression, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. Well, it takes 20, 30 years to become ill. And if I could just share a personal story, like my grandpa,
please do,
passed away at the end of last year. And he basically developed fibrosis of the lung very late in his late 70s, early 80s, almost out of nowhere. It was triggered kind of by an infection, but it turned out he was working in factories, being exposed to all sorts of stuff. They were manufacturing like gaskets and metallic products, and only in his late 70s, early 80s did he start developing lung disease like that. And he basically, his lungs became extremely like fibrotic, really elastic, really stiffened. So every breath he was taking was like really, he had to work doubly hard just to expand his lungs. It's much like a really thick, stiff rubber band. And that's what these compounds can do to the lungs. So it takes a long time. If I can frame it as well like this for the listeners, if you were a surgeon, right, and you were operating on someone, and let's say you were working on bone, it's just like concrete. Like the surgeons are using kind of drills and things to drill through concrete, drill through the bone. That bone, those shards are coming up. And now actually orthopedic surgeons wear hazmat suits, but before they used to just wear normal masks. It's the same principle. Like you're exposing yourself to micro little dust particles that are coming up. Do you want to be breathing in someone else's bone or soft tissue? It's the same with nail technicians. They're doing the same. They wear masks, right, for that same reason. And in surgery, they use a suction, like just a straw with a pump at the end, just to suck all that stuff up. So kind of why wouldn't you do it in the trade either? It doesn't make sense to me.
But we don't.
But you don't know. I know.
Yeah, and you're right. I'm just thinking drilling walls, and nobody goes and gets a mask to drill a wall.
Yeah.
But now I'm thinking that we should.
Yeah. And I remember we had some work done on our house a long time ago, and the builder was using like an ankle grinder saw? Angle grinder. An angle grinder, so not ankle grinder.
If it becomes an ankle grinder, that is a quick trip to A&E.
Yeah. An ankle grinder drill. And I remember it was sort of breakfast time, and he had like I can't remember what he had in. He had a biscuit in his mouth. And he was doing an extension, and basically he was cutting this piece of metal down. Like no mask, nothing. He was wearing a raw t-shirt. It was the middle of summer, chewing on his biscuit and like cutting down into this piece of metal. And actually the metal that they use as well for these circular saws and stuff contains a lot of cobalt. And also cobalt is something that we see in a lot of patients. So there's micro tiny little fragments that you would never think of. Our system is absorbing them.
Do you know what, Inder? I would love to say that I'd love to sit here and be like, oh my God, that sounds a bit, I reckon you could Probably not site. So building sites are quite, I guess, regulated. You know, they'll have the site foreman going around checking everyone's got their high vis, their hard hats, their masks if they're doing certain jobs. The domestic market in construction. I would say what you've just described is like nobody about an eyelid, mate.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. The amount of times I've seen ground workers and you know landscapers, same thing, big circular saws cutting patio slabs and whatever, and you know there's smoke and well, it's very apparent all the particles because you can't see through it. Like it's everywhere, but won't be wearing a mask, or the lad that's with them working won't be wearing a mask, because that's the other thing. Even if you'll have a room with work going on and there's one person's got a mask that's say ripping down a wall here, but his mate who's bagging it all up there's no mask. And now you're saying it, I'm almost having this light bulb moment where I'm like, oh my God.
And maybe bringing it sort of down a level. Simple products like, I shouldn't be mentioning brand names, but things like, you know, Mr. Muscle, window leans, bleachers, things like that. They obviously have the hazard signs at the back.
Mm-hmm.
But if you type in the product name and safety sheet, the manufacturers by law have to provide this information, and they give you a breakdown on every single compound. An example, a relative of mine, I won't name which relative it was, he loves his cars and he was washing his car. And when he bought this car, I think the brand is G-Technic, gave him this brand new bottle, a load of products in this box. And he was using this spray to clean the windshield. And I said to him, are you not going to keep the doors open and wear a mask? He said, don't be silly. I've been using this stuff for donkeys. He said, it's perfectly safe. If it wasn't safe, it wouldn't be on the market. Like, why, you know, people are using these products all the time. And anyway, he didn't listen to me. And then I Googled this particular product, safety sheet. And there it was. It broke down all the compounds, and it literally stated very explicitly, increases risk of asthma, allergies. In some cases, there was some like eye issues as well, eye inflammation. It's documented and it's there. And when I showed that to him, he was like, oh, holy shit. So he always opens the windows, or he'll use a mask, or because the other thing as well, like you, was kind of like using the cloth, spraying it on the cloth, on one side of the cloth, and then turning the cloth around. So now his naked hand is exposed to, and absorbing it and breathing it in.
Yeah.
We're breathing it all in.
Yeah, I've done lots of bad things in my life, Inder. This is one of those where I'm sat here now with all this stuff going through my head, thinking, oh, remember when I did that? Remember when I did this? Because again, when I first got light spraying, we talked about earlier, is kind of like a booming industry in the UK markets now. We wear the masks, and one of the things I noticed when I first started spraying, I was using a particular system. Won't bore you with the details really, but the object I was spraying, it was like creating a bit of a wind vacuum. So it was an air system that would sort of like break down the paint, and the paint particles are then sprayed out, wet particles, onto the object to cover the object. But it's delivered with a turbine, so it's blown on. With an airless system, it's pressure, there's no air. So if you held your hand in front of an airless sprayer, there's no air, it would just be paint because it's pressurised and pushed. The HVLP, XVLP systems, there's what they call a turbine system. A lot of them are 5-stage turbines, so it's like a leaf blower that atomises the paint and then blows the paint on rather than pressure pushing it on. Anyway, the blower, because I was spraying an object that was, I guess, like a tunnel with a block at the end, was creating a bit of a back spray into my face, I guess. And I was spraying some bespoke cabinetry with this effect. And I did a few of these jobs, and what I realised was 2 days later, every time I'd done it, I'd get an eye infection because this stuff is blowing back into my eyes. And again, it was learned by mistake because now I wear goggles. But yeah, but I didn't even consider it because the safety advice is wear a mask. And I always think, well, I'll protect my eyes if I'm doing anything like cutting, or if I'm working above my head and I'm doing stuff where things can fall into my eyes. But I hadn't really considered, spraying and the eyes.
Yeah, the eyes are one of the most absorbative surfaces of the body. So even infections, we can walk down the street and infections can come through our eyes. So yeah, just because if you can't see it, doesn't mean it's not there.
Fantastic. Just
So-
terrified to go and do my job now, Inder. Thanks for that.
No, just goggles and masks and gloves.
Goggles and masks at all. You haven't got like a PPE company, by
I
the way. He's
wish.
going to come out within a minute and be like, yeah, so by the way, if you're looking for all this equipment, here's a link. But no, it sounds like it makes a lot of sense, mate. And that I'm only talking about my experience in P&D. You know, you've got all the carpenters that are out there cutting, and again, you don't see many of them when they're on the chop saws with masks on, and they'll be cutting MDF and stuff like that. And MDF is obviously a known carcinogen. Yeah, it's quite frightening, actually, just how little we respect our own bodies in the building trades.
Yeah, but like, you know, it's only a problem until it becomes a problem, right?
Yeah.
So for so many, it comes back to what we were saying. So many people just push through, can just do it. They can function because their bodies are healthy. They can just do it, you know. And it's the same with like people who are alcoholics or you know, who smoke a lot. They can just do it because their system just can get rid of it and cope with it. But like I said, it's that cumulative exposure over a long period of time. And something's got to give, you know, as well. There's kind of a slightly esoteric piece to it. Like during periods of stress, it actually reduces our detox capacity. And if we have some big stress, you know, like grief, for example, with your divorce, that can be enough to just almost shut down detox. And that in itself can, I mean, obviously not shut down detox, but massively reduce it. And that can increase inflammation in the brain, and can literally, those chemicals have the opportunity to then cause a problem and manifest like they did with you.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. I want to talk to you about burnout, because I would say that is possibly one of the bigger health issues in construction. I want to talk to you about what it is, how it occurs, and how we can prevent it.
So burnout in its essence is when the hormonal system of the body, when particularly the adrenals and the thyroid, are not working as well or as efficiently as they should be. So there are many different manifestations. People traditionally think that it's just when adrenal hormones or stress hormones just drop and the body just can't cope with it anymore. But actually, in many cases, it's actually the stress hormones are so high that the brain just goes, I can't cope with this, and shuts down as a protective mechanism, because too much adrenaline, too much cortisol is actually quite damaging to the cells, because you're shunting in more energy. They've got a process. It's like a factory that's on 5 times speed. So kind of that's the physical basis of burnout. In terms of kind of what you can do, I mean, as always, prevention is the best cure. So recognizing those early stage signs is absolutely crucial.
Let me pause there a moment to address all of the painters and decorators in the room. Have you heard about the UK's first independent painting and decorating awards, the Golden Finish Awards? If not, go and check them out. This is your opportunity to be recognised for your skill. The first UK independent painting and decorating awards, not associated to a brand, purely associated to your skills. We're looking to recognise the exceptional skills shown in the painting and decorating industry. Jobs of all sizes and skill sets are there to be recognised. Check out the categories we've got on offer. There are 25 different categories within painting and decorating that you can get involved in. Check out the website at www.gfawards.co.uk and you'll see all of the categories that you can enter. And get ready for what is going to be the painting and decorating industry's event of the year for 2026. Now let's get back to the episode.
So the first kind of symptom that people don't necessarily register is becoming more easily overwhelmed. And sometimes it manifests as kind of being irritable or aggressive, but just a feeling of like, whoa, I'm feeling overwhelmed here, I can't cope. That's often the first symptom. Next is sleep. Will often manifest in sleep in some way. So either you're sleeping more or you're sleeping less. So you're finding that you're waking up in the middle of the night, or just struggling to get to sleep altogether. Or sometimes you're sleeping and you're just not feeling refreshed. That can be, I mean, that can happen during stress, particularly stressful times anyway, but if it becomes consistent over many days, weeks, months, then that's often an early sign of kind of a potential burnout. The next is kind of bloating, of like IBS kind of symptoms at all. So if people are just noticing that they're feeling fuller, maybe feeling tired, sleepy after meals, that's a sign as well that that your gut is not operating as efficiently as well. And then lastly, kind of mental health / brain fog. You know, if you're just finding it difficult to concentrate on your work, if you notice like maybe you had really good attention to detail, and now all of a sudden clients or whatever or colleagues are picking up on mistakes, that's often also can be a sign that your system is dealing with something. Okay. And then in terms of what you can do about it, you know, if you can, in an ideal world, take your foot off the accelerator as soon as possible. Obviously, you've got to do your work duties, but then immediately say no to personal commitments. You know, if your girlfriend wants to go out for dinner with friends or whatever, say no. I remember my mentor used to say to me, if you've ever had a really stressful day, the best thing to do is literally just get into bed and do nothing. And at the time, I kind of laughed. I thought, well, this sounds really strange. But actually, only now looking back and with my knowledge, I kind of appreciate the wisdom in that, because that is the only opportunity when you're just sitting there and doing nothing for the adrenals to kind of calm down, for neurotransmitters to reset. So take your foot off the accelerator, say no to those unnecessary commitments, just postpone them. And probably most important as well, there's a tendency when people are on the brink of burnout to become essentially feeling more stressed and feeling like they need to unwind more. So they're more likely to lean on the alcohol, more likely to lean on the drugs or the cigarettes, things like that. And that's a real recipe for disaster.
Spiral.
That's a real spiral, because you're just adding in an extra assault into the system. So I understand that need to try and wind down, but do not rely heavily on alcohol or drugs for that. In an ideal world, go on holiday or do something that takes you out of that environment that can allow your system to reset. Having said that, once you're in that kind of pre-burnout, super revved up stage, it's really hard to come down. A lot of people do lean on the drugs and then the alcohol. There are some supplements that people can take that can kind of bring them down fairly quickly. Very high dose magnesium, like 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams. L-theanine, for example, is an amino acid that works in the brain. Lemon balm. There's a certain number of herbs that can just bring the system down immediately. Phosphatidylserine is another one.
When you say bring the system down, this is your internal system.
This is the adrenals, yeah.
Okay.
The high levels of adrenaline and cortisol, to bring those down immediately. Because when you're at that stage of pre-burnout, your adrenals are knocking out huge amounts of cortisol, and that cortisol is trying to bind to the cell, knock on the door saying, let us in. And the cell's saying, no, I want to protect. So obviously immediately you need to try and take away those stress hormones. Okay.
What's the difference between pre-burnout and burnout? Like tipping over the edge into burnout? What would the symptoms of that be? And what's going on there?
So pre-burnout is what I described. So it's that feeling of being tired and wired, kind of feeling like, God, I need a break. But at the same time, I'm so wired and agitated and I've got a million things to do. And, that kind of feeling. Burnout, you know about it. In kind of the more severe cases, it's that feeling of, I just can't get out of bed. I just, what is the point of life? Like that and that is when the brain is just saying, we need to get out of here. We need to reset. We need to protect ourselves. So yeah, the symptoms of burnout tend to be fatigue, brain fog, IBS-like symptoms, can be kind of depression type symptoms, anxiety, a whole host of different symptoms that can manifest.
I think part of the problem with it, Inder, is a lot of it is cumulative. So people will experience burnout alongside anxiety and depression. And that feeling that you said, like overwhelm, the feeling of overwhelm, I can't do this, I can't be in this position anymore, but then not knowing why they feel that way and what to do next. And unfortunately, I think that translates into the suicide figures, if I'm honest, because I think some people get to that point and just don't know what to do. And the only thing they can think of to stop the pain, as it were, is the final step. And that's why I think educating yourself, or educating everybody on things like burnout is really important, because getting to know these things, it can be a piece to the puzzle. Because quite often, I mean, what you just said there, you feel like you need to step up. So what do? You think, oh, I need to wind down. I can't wind down. I'm going to go and get smashed. Yeah, going out, and then the drink leads to drugs, and then all of a sudden you're on a 3-day, 4-day bender on things that are depressants anyway. And then when you do come out of it, you've got the same problems you had before times 10. So you do it again, and it's this spiral, and that's my own speculation on it. Is it's very rarely one thing. It's normally like the perfect storm. Essentially, it's one thing leading to another, to another, to another, and in amongst all this, you're gonna have poor nutrition because nobody's planning their meals when you're in burnout or when you're in depression and highly anxious states. I mean, me personally, I didn't think to myself, I feel really anxious, I'm going to pop down Tesco's and go and get 8 veg. It's not the way that
it's a big leap.
We're taught to cope. Yeah. And this is the problem. It's so often so many elements of our life are tied to each other. And when one thing goes bad, it spirals, and that's the hard slide to stop.
Yeah. I think something to remind yourself when you're feeling like this, it's a physical phenomenon happening in your body. It's a physical phenomenon. You're not alone. These feelings that you're feeling, whatever it is, anxiety, overwhelm, sadness, they are biochemical feelings, and it's your system telling you that things are out of balance. There are some certain things that you can do. Things like, it sounds crazy, but like a teaspoon of sodium bicarb and a little bit of water. If you're ever feeling super on edge or your mood you're really kind of in that zone of suicidal thoughts, obviously the first thing you need to do is tell someone, obviously. Mm-hmm. But the next thing I would recommend is having a teaspoon of sodium bicarb. It sounds totally crazy. Drink it, and it takes a massive layer away. And that's because the bicarb is actually essentially interacting with the inflammatory molecules that are being released around the body. And basically it kind of helps shut down some of the inflammation that's going on in the brain. And it's enough just to take away that big edge, that edge that you're feeling.
That's really interesting.
It sounds totally kooky and totally weird. I'll probably get some hate messages from it, but it's a very powerful tool.
I mean, like anything, it's not something that you rely on, but anything that is a tip or a trick, not a trick, if it's backed in science, it is, but anything that can help, why not?
Absolutely.
Why not? I mean, the worst thing that you can do is you try it and it doesn't work.
Exactly.
Because it's certainly not going to be harmful.
No.
It's it fascinates me, all this stuff. And it, like I say, it's all the links and the fact that one thing leads to another, and the poor nutrition, all the sayings are there, aren't they? Old, I mean, Christ, how old is the saying, trust your gut, or your gut feeling, and all this kind of stuff, and the links between the gut and the brain, therefore the gut and mental health. I'm going to tell you an average tradesman's day, potentially. Might be worst case scenario, this, so just give me a little bit of wiggle room. But I don't think this is far out of script. I want you to tell me the worst thing about it and why. So we're going to start the day going to Greg's. We're going to have a can of Monster with a bacon and egg baguette. That's going to see us through till an early lunch. We're going to go down to Tesco's. We're going to get a meal deal. We're going to grab a sandwich, a bag of crisps and a chocolate bar, and probably maybe a diet drink. We'll have a diet fizzy drink. And then on the evening, we're going to go home. We're going to get in late. We've had a stressful day. We've maybe got to 2-3 o'clock. Bit of a lull. So we've gone and grabbed a chocolate bar. Name your chocolate bar, take your pick. Of an evening, sat down, same thing, too tired to cook. We've gone on to Just Eat and we've ordered a Chinese for the evening. I wouldn't have thought that's too far out of scope for some people's nutrition. What's the worst part of that?
So, kind of long gone are the days where I would...
Was it just equally bad all the way through?
What I'm about to say is going to probably surprise you. You know, my days of saying, okay, let's try and overhaul your diet have long gone. my question, the immediate thing that stood out to me there is, why do you need to drink a can of Monster in the morning?
Mm-hmm.
Not because I'm judging and not because it's unhealthy,
No.
but from the perspective of, I assume that most of these guys are drinking a drink like that in the morning because they need the pick me up, they need the energy.
Yeah.
So I'll approach it from that perspective. What can I do to improve your energy? So I'm immediately wondering, why is this guy's energy low? And I suspect, obviously, they're working. It's a hard work. They've got lots of commitments, etc. But I suspect kind of bringing in the toxic component is not helping the energy production situation. So my first thing to address there would be trying to support your energy through potentially, obviously, protecting against the chemicals in the first place, optimizing energy production through things like B vitamins, simple stuff, CoQ10, just to kind of, which ironically also help with detoxification.
Is this a supplement? Or?
This is supplements.
Okay.
These are supplements, yeah. So things like B vitamins, CoQ10.
If you were to recommend key supplements for the average tradesperson's diet that would live roughly on or off the sort of diet that I just described, what would you bring to the table?
So the first one is, probably you're not going to expect this one. So the first one that I recommend to a lot of people is something called Payne essential oils. So you've probably heard of fish oil. I'm sure the listeners are all aware of fish oil.
Cod liver oil.
Cod liver oil, is a source of fish oil, of that. So cod liver oil, we use that as an example, provides very high doses of omega-3 fatty acids in the form of EPA and DHA. Generally speaking, if you're eating fish in whatever form 2, 3, 4 times a week, you're taking fish oil supplements on top, you're going to be getting an overdose of those fatty acids. And that's a problem, because those fatty acids, when they get kind of shunted into the cell, they are not fit for purpose because they're extremely fragile to oxygen. And what that means is the immune system has to try and work hard to recycle. And when that happens, you get something called oxidative stress, which means that you're actually causing more damage to the cell than you are helping by taking those fish oils. So the converse to that, the flip side to that, is the parent essential oils, which are fatty acids from kind of in the original forms, if you like. And these are super helpful because they actually give you the fatty acids that your cell needs to function optimally. So generally speaking, if you're a tradesman and you're working long hours and you're working hard, playing hard, and you're exposing yourself to all these chemicals, your cell's ability to kind of process and use energy is greatly diminished, which partly explains why energy production can be low as well. So these fatty acids, these parent essential oils, basically provide the cell with the nutrients in order to produce more energy, to get more oxygen inside the cell. And they're also anti-aging as well, for lots of different reasons. So it's highly protected. So it supports energy, supports oxygenation, and gives your system really the foundation to
say
function.
This again, in the
parent essential oils.
Parent
essential oils.
Parent as in like father, son.
Parent essential oils.
Parent essential oil.
Yeah.
Right.
The reason being is because you have EPA and DHA, which are kind of like the byproducts, and then you got the parents. So EPA and DHA are made from the parents. So we want to give your body the parents.
Is that a supplement of its own accord?
It is, absolutely, yeah. So those oils actually come from things like coconut, from flaxseed, from sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds. But it's just really the fats have to be extracted in a certain way, which makes it kind of quite hard to consume. You can consume those things in food form, but you kind of want those fats extracted in a very particular way so they're not damaged when you're eating them.
Are these? I take it these are like capsules that you can...
Yeah. It's actually really a food rather than a supplement. Okay. So the PEOs are absolute must, because the other thing I didn't mention is those oils are kind of basically in the cell, and they're helping detox the crap out of the cell. Right. So this supplement also helps basically get rid of the toxins that you're exposing yourself to.
So great for getting rid of toxins, parent essential oils.
Yeah. Anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, anti-aging. A very wonderful tool.
And I've never heard of them.
Yeah, a few people have.
Yeah, I've never heard of those. Readily available?
So there's only really one supplement, one manufacturer that I trust. It's a factory in Vegas, It's because it's very expensive. It costs a lot of money to manufacture these because you have to extract under certain temperatures and conditions and light, so that because these fats are so sensitive. So it's a brand called Yes, YESPEOs, and I think it's sold from a website called Buzz Health.
That's your recommendation.
Yes,
so available on Amazon.
It used to be, not now. Interestingly, it could be again. Check
them out.
Worth it, yeah.
Have you got a code?
I wish I did.
His code on. He's on commission.
I wish I did. Yeah.
Part owns the firm.
I wish.
But no. So as well as parent essential oils, then is there anything else you'd add in?
Yes, probably for the average tradesman, energy is an issue. So I would probably recommend something super simple like a CoQ10 B vitamin formula, something that supports energy production. Because ironically, energy is intimately twined with detox. So if you have kind of low energy, detox is going to be diminished. So it's probably no surprise that the nutrients that benefit energy also benefit detox.
It's really a light bulb moment, to be honest, Inder, because I've always considered supplements as what else do I need to put in? I'd never considered what do I need to get out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'd never even thought of it like that for some reason. I'd always thought about, like I say, vitamins and supplementing as extras. I need to add this into my diet. I need to add this in. I'd never considered what my body has to work to get rid of.
The way to look at it is kind of like, so in order for all the chemical reactions to happen in the body, we need these things called enzymes. And basically the reason why nutrition is important, all these vitamins and minerals, is because the vitamins and minerals give what are called cofactors to the enzymes. They give the ingredients to the enzymes in order to function properly. So in a perfect world, you'd be eating well, and you'd be receiving all these vitamins and minerals, and your enzymes are just functioning. But in reality, we're exposed, like I said, to 50,000 man-made chemicals that get kind of pushed into the soup, and the enzymes are having to use the environmental toxins, so things like mercury, aluminium, all the things we mentioned, polyurethane, all that stuff, and they're binding to the enzymes. So when you're actually consuming more things like vitamins and minerals, you're kind of helping to shunt out those environmental toxins that are affecting your biochemistry. So generally speaking, a blanket statement, but a lot of the reasons why tradesmen are kind of feeling so knackered, why we're all feeling so tired all the time, is because of these environmental toxins essentially muddying the waters in our cell and our kind of our system trying to clear the sludge. Of
course, what we're sort of like genetically evolved to consume is no longer what we consume. Everything's highly processed. It's all, like we said before, fast, quick and easy foods. And that can't be helping.
No. But this will probably surprise you, but this is going to sound controversial. Apart from the 8 veggies, it doesn't really matter what you eat. And I use Donald Trump as an example.
I just got green lighted. I like that line.
It's
right, Chinese tonight.
it's super controversial because there are no doubt, obviously, if you eat an optimized diet, it's going to optimize your health. There's no doubt about that. But generally speaking...
Explain that one to me then, Inder.
So, if you have a healthy body, a biochemically balanced body, your system will just be able to deal with whatever you throw at it. So I use the example of Donald Trump. Forget about his politics. He's 80 years old, and he has the lifestyle of someone in their 40s, 50s, right? He's, from 7 a.m. till midnight, he's on the go. Yet his diet is famously shit. Lives on fast food, and apparently his diet has pretty much never changed. That's his one constant in life, is his kind of food and his diet. Why is he able to do that? Because his system is fairly balanced, and he has tremendous energy. His body can deal with it. And fast foods, sounds weird, but fast foods do have nutrients in them.
There's got to be something.
Just lower quality, but they're there. So his system is able. I'm sure he takes vitamins as well. I'm sure he's had some help as well. But I kind of see health as the other way around. If I've got a tradesman who's eating junk and he's not feeling well, I think, why is he not feeling? What's the root cause of him really not feeling well? And it normally boils down to environmental toxins, environmental infections of some kind, and sometimes kind of emotional factors, or just logistical and emotional stuff like sleep and relationships with their spouses and family. It really boils down to those 3 things.
It's an interesting take, and I think one that potentially people will go for, because Unfortunately, I think the problem, and it's like the January thing, isn't it? Right, new year, new me, and all that crap. It can seem an insurmountable change because quite often it's this like, right, I need to change, I need to do all that thing, I need to lose some weight, get my energy up, blah, blah. So what have I got to do? Well, I've got to completely change everything. I've got to stop completely doing and it's too much, too soon for a lot of people. That's why New Year's resolutions, most of them don't last longer than the first week.
They're bullshit.
It is just complete and utter change. It's like, right, no more takeaways, no more this, no more that. I guess I've got to that age in life now. I've had to make some changes recently. Me personally, mate, I've gone in and out of being fit, essentially. Blame you guys and this podcast. So 2 years ago, I was in pretty good shape. Then decided to do this, and all my free time that I used to go to the gym and train is now here. So I haven't trained consistently for a couple of years. I'm at least 2, maybe 2.5 stone overweight currently for where I should be, where I know I feel good. So I'm making some changes, but I've walked this path before, to the point where I know that if I turn around to myself and I go, no takeaways, no fast food, no nothing, it ain't gonna last, because there will come a point on one of the days that at some point I'm going to go, do you know what, I've just walked in at 8 p.m. I ain't got it in me to now make sure I've done my 10,000 steps, go to Tesco's, get all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. I do just want to jump on Just Eat and have, a Domino's to my door in 10 minutes. The objective is to make that maybe 1 day a week rather than 4 days a week, incremental changes. And then eventually maybe I'll get to the point where I go, no, I'm not having that at all, because I can organise my life a bit better. But I think that's where a lot of us go wrong, is we look at our lifestyle and we go, well, the only way to fix this is complete and utter change. But what you just said would be a lot easier to digest, for want of a better word.
My motto is add, don't take away. There's a focus on taking away. Just add the vegetables, add some good oils.
What I would love you to do after you go away after this recording today is pop on a message to me, that list of things that you would suggest that the average tradesperson adds into their diet to balance out the toxins and all the rest of it. And what I'm going to do, if Inder does this, so it's on him, not me, if he sends me this list, scroll down, wherever you're watching this, in the episode description will be the list. And I'll pop it onto the episode description for the episode, just so it's quick and easy for people. Go down wherever you're watching this. There's an episode description on all of them. And hopefully in there will be a little segment where people can pick out those things to add rather than take away.
And I'll also put an info sheet just covering all the different toxins contained in different compounds, and with some studies as well, so that they're aware at least.
Just to terrify everyone.
Not to terrify, no, just to remind them to put their gloves and their their masks on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, that would be great, mate. I think I've always, with the podcast, I've always had the opinion, if it helps one person, it has entirely been worth it. So even if it just gets one person, and if that person might be me, that goes away and starts, I'd just never considered it. Genuinely, all the stuff that you've come out with today in terms of the toxins and the clearing out rather than the putting in, I hadn't thought about it. Yeah. And I'm 41. I know I don't look it, I look 51. But yeah, 41. And I've spent, I started going to work with my dad when I was 8 in the construction industry.
Wow.
So I've been around that for a long time, and a good chunk of it very unprotected. So
it's okay. It's not, like I said, the bodies are incredibly strong, incredibly resilient. There's a huge amount of redundancy built in. We hear all these stories of people running ultra marathons and living on an island for a week without food. The body has huge redundancy.
It always blows my mind, to be honest, when you see some of the incredible feats of endurance and survival that the human body can withstand, and then it can be so fragile at the same time. It can be seemingly indestructible, and then in other cases people will pass away from things that seem so small. But I guess that's one of the many joys of life, isn't it?
Absolutely. But it kind of creeps back into what we were saying, like it sounds overly simple, but it's generally true that most chronic disease, cancer, diabetes, those heart disease, there is some component underlying factor of infections and toxins. Unfortunately, we live in a world now where that is the case, where most of our health has been kind of destroyed by these environmental toxins that kind of lurk 50,000 and everywhere. And they're residues. They're not just kind of like a puddle of pesticide somewhere. They're everywhere, just in our food chain, just getting diluted and diluted and diluted. But we're getting exposed to it everywhere. And we didn't really talk about Wi-Fi either, which is something that, and 5G, which is something else that is worrying me. I'm not saying, I'm not saying it's causing anything, but it's...
I'm smiling because I'm just thinking, Christ, we could go down a right rabbit
It's another
hole
assault.
here, to be fair.
It's another assault. It's that perfect storm of all these different factors that accumulate over time.
I had this conversation with my son actually the other day. It was just not particularly about 5G and Wi-Fi, but just about the things that surround us that we can't see. We haven't got the perception. And I was talking to my son about exactly that. It's incredible how now we're so connected with these devices and we can go anywhere, and this signal is getting to our devices, which means it's also getting to us. We can't see it, but we're surrounded by it now. There's Wi-Fi in the studio, so it's pinging off us everywhere, left, right and centre. And I said to him, it's like radiation. What's the there was that core, the meltdown, Chernobyl,
Yeah.
that was it. Now, you can't see the radiation, but there's that exposed core that if you get within so far of it, you die very, very quickly from radiation poisoning, but you can't see radiation. It's like UV from the sun. You can see the sun, but you can't see the UV in itself that's burning your skin. And we live, like you say, in this environment all the time, around and surrounded by these things. And a lot of the time we don't really... There's not been any long-term research as to the effect of Wi-Fi, has there really? Because Wi-Fi's been around for how long?
Yeah, it's linked back to what I was saying about all the different chemicals, the 50,000 man-made chemicals. A lot of them are just released, and then later on, many years later, we've been associated with this now, we need to ban it.
Yeah. Construction industry, asbestos was this miracle substance because it was fireproof, flame retardant. So that was why it got put in all the schools and hospitals. It was a lot of their roofs and all that lot, and the corrugated sheeting that was all asbestos fireproof. It was this miracle substance for a long, long time. It was only obviously later, once they found out how dangerous it was, that it got withdrawn.
Scary. It's super scary. And with the Wi-Fi, I say Wi-Fi, I'm talking a lot more about 5G. There are studies that have been done where they kind of take cells in a petri dish and introduce an infection. And then they'll take another group of cells, introduce an infection, but then kind of expose it to 5G. And the ones that are exposed to 5G, the immune cells are a lot sleepier, a lot less efficient. They don't replicate as fast. And obviously that's a petri dish study. And there are scientists who do believe that 5G and Wi-Fi actually kind of are like the spark for COVID and for other infections. So it's, I don't know if you heard about Wayne Lineker recently. Yeah, coming back from Dubai. Mm-hmm. Speculation, obviously, he stopped drinking quite recently, which is fantastic and amazing. He went to Dubai. Dubai is the most prolific 5G infrastructure in the world at the moment.
Okay.
If you walk outside, you get onto the top of a building in Dubai and you look around, there's a mast every 10, 20, 30 meters, everywhere, every corner you look. And kind of, it's my kind of assumption at the moment that 5G it weakens our immune systems, basically, by causing some level of suppression or change that we're not fully really appreciating.
Do you think that's accidental or deliberate?
Well, put it this way. I think, anyone who's listening right now and looking around them, you can see 5G pylons and masts everywhere. The reason why they're doing that is because it's much cheaper to put those masts up as opposed to laying new fiber optic. There are a couple of theories. There are some people who believe that these people do know what they're doing, and there are others who just say it's a happy coincidence.
I'm very open-minded, mate. I'm very open. It just interests me, and I'm not trying to trip you up.
No, it's not. No,
but it's I mean, again, we'll be careful what we go into. Yeah. But I have very strong opinions on the whole situation around COVID.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll continue the conversation off camera is probably better. But it seems to, I mean, what's the next thing? We've had 3G, 4G, 5G. Is the next thing 6G?
Yeah, 6 and 7G.
And when it gets to there, is that more of a risk? Are we getting to a point where they could essentially turn off our immune system? Because, I mean, let's go, full conspiracy here. But if whoever they
The higher
is,
powers.
if the powers that be were to develop a system that could actually turn off the human immune system, that would be dangerous, wouldn't it?
I mean, you could argue it's sort of started to happen already with COVID. COVID was able to do that in a small proportion of people, a relative small, I mean, a large proportion, but a small proportion of the world's population. It's happening. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying. If you suppress the immune system, one thing people don't really appreciate is that we have so many different bacteria and viruses in our system at all times, and the immune system suppresses it. But with the introduction of things like 5G, it's possible that these things just bubble up to the surface and kind of are there, and they can cause a problem. And then during a time of stress or a very serious acute infection, like a really bad chest infection, they can really come out. I know so many people who, like in their 40s, 50s, 60s, who have travelled, and all of a sudden just, like, it was a very mild, tiny little chest infection. They fly, and all of a sudden it goes into full-blown sepsis. They're in ITU for 3 months. We didn't really see it like that in the past. Yeah, there's something there. There's something there that needs to be explored. And, a lot of people talk about the introduction of 5G and 6G for autonomous vehicles. But I was speaking to a mechanical engineer recently, and he was saying for autonomous vehicles to exist, they don't actually need 5G or 6G connectivity because they can drive themselves. It's just kind of, it helps them with traffic prediction and relaying information back to the motherships. So it's worrying. But the good news about the people who are listening, there are so many solutions that you can introduce into your house, like special shielding paints and nets and glass covers and things like that.
Oh, we're talking about the signal blockers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I would strongly encourage. We know a lot of our patients kind of are very kind of invested and research heavy. We see really interesting things happen when they kind of build a safe room. They kind of they apply you have to apply 3 or 4 coats of this paint. It's like black stuff that blocks signal coming out or in.
Okay.
Around, and then they cover the glass with a sheet, and then they put you've got to ground the walls as well. Ground them.
So I've heard of grounding sheets.
Yeah. This is slightly different. You've got to basically take a wire attached to each wall, and then you've got to literally put it into the earth somewhere.
Okay.
And anyways, they build these safe rooms, and they notice if they sleep there or spend significant portions of their day there, they feel really unwell.
Unwell?
They feel really unwell, yeah. And that is because the immune system, we think that the immune system has the opportunity to go, oh my God, these are all these little holes everywhere we need to fix. And inflammation increases, and the system can actually detoxify a lot of the crap.
So you'd feel unwell initially, but better long term if you were to exist within it.
100%.
It's one of those things, actually. It's a common thing that a lot of my peers and social circle within the construction industry. It's quite a common sort of phenomenon. We work so hard constantly. The minute we stop, we get ill. Mm-hmm. It's like everybody gets ill at Christmas because they've stopped. Same with holidays. They go on holiday, they get ill. Any insight as to why that is?
Yeah, that's because in the short to medium term, having high levels of adrenaline, cortisol suppresses the immune system. So the infection's there, but the essentially it suppresses. So when we're ill, when we experience colds and flus, the feelings of the shivers and feeling unwell and headaches and snotty noses, that's not actually the bacteria or the virus causing that. It's the immune system's response to it.
So we feel ill when our immune system is active.
Exactly. Fighting. Right.
So if we're working incredibly hard, overpaced, burnout levels, I guess.
You're suppressing that response.
Our immune system isn't working, so the infections still exist within us, but they're just not being fought.
Exactly.
And then when we stop, our immune system picks up and essentially makes us feel ill because it's fighting off.
Exactly.
Wow.
Because the immune system can actually relax and then see the problem.
Thank you. I've just learned something.
Yeah. That's why.
If there's nothing else that I can take away, and there's plenty, but I'll take that away. In fact, as soon as we finish recording, I'm going to be in my WhatsApp group. And, lads, guess what? Guess what I learned today? Because it's kind of like a phenomenon that we all accept, but no, can't really understand. It's that like, oh, great, I've took a week off and straight away I feel like crap.
Yeah, which is why, but that's why it's so good. That's why it's what happened. The problem comes when you're pushing and pushing and pushing and you're not having that rest. That the inflammation, that the immune system, the cortisol levels get so high that the level of inflammation actually becomes counterproductive. So it's got the infection, but it's also then it's kind of attacking itself at the same time.
Right.
That kind of makes sense.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a double whammy, and that's what can lead to burnout. It's like you crack the immune system. If you've got too much cortisol in the system for too long, it's like the immune system cracks and kind of breaks and goes, oh, I can't really do my job properly. And then that infection can then run rampant and then manifest in all the burnout symptoms, like I talked about, the fatigue and the brain fog. And then it's much, much harder to get yourself out.
That's really interesting.
It's much easier to pull someone back from the edge of a cliff than piece them back together once they've fallen.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, wow. This conversation has been absolutely packed full of information, so I really thank you for that. Let everybody know where they can find you and your services if they should so wish, your socials, your business and all the rest of it.
For sure, yeah. So if you just Google me, Inder Virdi Nutrition, I'll come up on Google and you'll see me.
Social media wise?
Yes, I'm on Instagram, the Neuropath. We'll put that at the bottom of the
absolutely.
videos.
Send me the socials.
Yeah.
Scroll down in the episode descriptions. There'll be a link to, you say Instagram.
Yeah.
Be a link to Inder's Instagram. Give him a follow for more insight, I would imagine.
Awesome.
Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really do thank you for your time and sharing your knowledge. It's been fascinating. There's a lot for me to take away. Really appreciate your time, Inder. It's been fascinating, and hopefully somebody out there listening will take away one piece of advice that is going to improve their life, myself included. I'm going to be looking up those parent extract oils.
Parent essential oils, PEOs.
Essential. I'm going to be looking for my parent essential oils because, now I feel like I need to detox and wear gloves. So, it's been a really interesting conversation, mate. I thank you for that.
Pleasure.
To everyone listening, thank you for listening, and I will catch you soon on the next one.